Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC and with me is
Wolf.
and today we are stepping into the world of Arknights, a game which I'm gonna say right now haven't played.
I have now. I figured, hey, we're gonna cover the anime. Someone might ought to go out and get a little bit experience with the game. So I gave
Yeah,
it a
that's
shot.
something for the record we are talking about the anime, not the game itself.
I mean, there's
But I think like whenever we do an adaptation of something, I guess like I haven't played the game. I am judging this based on what I saw, based on what I experienced, based on what I felt.
I mostly am
So
too, because again, to talk a little bit about the game, it's basically a tower defense game of all things, which surprised me, I'll admit.
uh-huh.
I did not expect that, but it is a mobile gotcha game. If you're familiar with that, it's basically a game where you play it on your phone and you buy characters to help you do the missions with your tower defense style stuff, essentially. It's all right. I'm not a big fan of tower defense. I'm also not a big gotcha game player for those who do, but it's from what I have played, it's good. It's enjoyable.
All right. So we have someone who haven't played the game at
And
all.
uh,
Uh,
oh, go ahead. I'll let you finish first.
I just someone who haven't played the game at all, and someone who did play it, like what he played, but you won't necessarily say that you are big into it or something that like you play every day or
No,
something
no,
like
no.
that.
This is just something I did solely for this podcast.
Oh,
After this fact, probably won't touch it all that much. It's again not for me, not my thing. But it seems like it'd be fun for those who are into it. I
yeah, and
will
for the record,
say
the reason I haven't played it for the record is because this is not my kind of game.
that's fair.
I don't just, I can get into something that like I need to wait for stuff to happen and then pay real life money in order to invest more in it. Not my thing. Sorry, I'm sure there's an appeal, right? I'm sure there's an
I
appeal.
I will
You
say
guys enjoy it.
like I didn't have to pay any money into this one to play it. Like it's fairly, it doesn't waste your time. I will give it that much. Like a lot of mobile games, hey, spend money and we won't waste your time. This one doesn't
There
do
you
that,
go.
which is good. So I'll give
Okay,
them
so
credit for
credit
that.
there. Yeah, credit for that. I'm not. But anyway, today we're here to talk about the anime. And Wolf,
Speaking of the anime,
you
real quick, I will say it covers. It looks to be like Act One of the game. So like that's where the story comes from. I thought it was its own separate thing, but no, it is the story from the game, more or less.
all right.
But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that you introduced me to this. Like you told
Hmm.
me that you want to cover it because if I recall, you also spoke highly of this when we
Yeah,
did the
I
Outcast last
I
week.
came into this because again, I my only experience with Arknights before I watched the anime was I've heard of that. I've seen that character before. That's it. That character being Amiya, the main character, the main bunny girl
Yes.
character. I've seen her
Mhm.
before. That's it. I know of that game. I've heard of it. That's it. Came into it with no expectations, walked away like, that one was good, I felt. It surprised me. I enjoyed that. I didn't know if this gotcha game would have a good anime, and it seems we're continuing the trend of random games that come out and get good animes. And what is this?
How popular is this? Because I feel like I'm going to make some people mad.
I think I was wondering if you would. I do not know. I feel like it's fairly popular within like
I'll t-
that
okay.
circle of anime enjoyers, right? Like the game is.
I'll say this for the record. When I say I'm about to make people mad, for the record, I don't think the show is bad. Okay,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
don't think it's bad, and we'll probably talk more when we are also in a spoiler, in a spoiler section because. But the point is, I don't think it's a bad show. There are things in there that I'm like, I see the potential. I see a glimmer. I see something. And but then again, the show has one problem. It bored me. And I understand this is like maybe it's just a subjective thing, that maybe it's just not my thing. This could totally be it. This could totally be I'm the idiot, I'm the asshole, I'm wrong. I am completely aware of this, but it just felt like a bunch of old cliches I've seen in other shows, anime or otherwise, and in other games and other movies. And they just kind of put them together because that's the norm. This is what's cool nowadays. This is what we do without any rhyme or reason, or honestly, any stakes or drama that felt like it held any weight.
So,
And I'm sorry to say this because I was interested from the first episode. I was interested in seeing where it was going. I would say that there were first episodes of shows that captivated me more. But honestly, this is why I'm asking what the fandom, stance is on this, because there are moments where I felt like, what are the chances that if I've actually played the game, I would have more attachment?
I've
And
delved a little bit, and it seems like they really enjoy it. They really love it. And I will say, right, I told HC nothing about this. Like, I praised
Mhm.
it, but that's all I said. I said nothing about this. And to be honest, you kind of walk away feeling a little bit how I did too. I still very much enjoyed it, but I will say, to me, it feels like this first season is doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of like getting you interested in the world, right? There's just a lot going on. It feels very front loaded, but it feels like because it's so front loaded, not a lot is getting done in terms
and
of
I will tell
coming into
you,
it with,
before we talk
zero
about this
experience
though,
with anything else that it's based off of, right?
yeah, but before we actually jump into this, one thing I found interesting is because I was curious. Like, for the record, I finished the show like only a few hours before we started recording this. Like, this
We're
is fresh in my
professionals.
mind. And no, like for the record, it's also that I just had a busy week. So what
Fair,
can you
fair,
do?
fair.
But I also said, well, better finish it closer to the podcast as possible, so that I'll have it fresh in my head. Then for
Hmm.
one, I barely remember stuff. But besides the point, I was curious in the few hours I had. I'm like, well, I wonder what the general consensus is between people who like it, people who are fans, and people who are newcomers. And it's interesting that I didn't really find a definitive stance, because in some places it seems like newcomers are more welcome into the show, while fans are like outraged at changes, or how they did certain scenes. But at the same time, I also found people who are like, oh, as a fan I enjoy this, but I'm aware that maybe newcomers are gonna have a harder time getting into this. So this is why I'm asking what you heard, because I've heard both sides are apparently, again, I didn't have much time to actually delve into this, but it seems like it's kind of even ground between which side it satisfies more. But I'll tell you, this is like, from looking at this from the most objective part possible as an
So,
adaptation, it seems like most people aren't sure if it's like, oh, if it's loyal to the source material and the fans would enjoy it, or if it sacrifices the fan service for the sake of having a general audience. And honestly, either way, as an adaptation, it kind of fails one part.
So, from the little I do know of what I have messed around with the game, to me, it seems like it's fairly loyal. It seems like the changes it makes work better for, a visual media than it would for a game, because the game doesn't do cutscenes. It's on a phone, so they just do like still stock images. Think like visual
I
novel sort
heard
of
that there are
stuff.
apparently like some mobile games. I think I heard that there are like CG trailers or animated
Well, yeah,
trailers
they
here and
have.
there.
They do, like, they've done their own little animation stuff for it, which supposedly looks really good. But for the most part, like in the game itself, it was basically just kind of think visual novel stuff, like stock still images of characters talking on it, stuff like
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
which
Fair.
is fine. It works. You can do a story like that. Blah blah blah.
It gets the job done.
Yeah,
That's what matters.
yeah. I mean, people love visual novels, right? Some of them, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But from the circles I've run in, the people who I've seen who love to play Arknights, other than to say, yeah, it was good, that's it. The people who have never played Arknights, like myself, but were a little interested, came in and said, like, this has me more interested. I'm a little bit more curious now. Not enough to go out and play the game, no, but I'm interested in this world. I'm interested in the stuff that they have going on here because it is different. It is a little, it is unique to itself anyways. I'm sure there's stuff out there like that, that exists somewhere, but I've not seen or heard of it myself personally. But again, like it interested people, especially new people, and got them a little bit more hooked, right? Especially that first episode or so, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And it is interesting while I say that, no one can really give an answer regarding
but otherwise,
if it's better for newcomers or established fans. One, I have to say, it's so interesting. It's actually interesting as much as it fails in to capture one type of audience, which is hard to capture both, right? I think we only recently started to really have those good video game adaptations. I think we talked about this. That only, I want to say since maybe maybe Castlevania, the Sonic movies, Cuphead, Arcane, of course, all of those kind of managed to like nail it on catering to their fan base, but also like bringing new people in. But and then we have this one, and then we have Arknights, which I see so many people flip flop between which audience it gets more, and it's honestly fascinating to see that there seems to be like an equal argument for each side. And as much as I was bored by the end of it, I think it's kind of fascinating to see a show that no one really knows what's going on with it. You get what I mean?
It definitely feels like it's one of those anime that, hey, this isn't bad. It's not like one of the greatest animes ever, but it's not bad, right? It's one of it's inoffensive, I guess you would say, right?
I think again, this is
it
what
does just
this
enough
is kind
to
of like,
make it stick with you just a bit and make you go, maybe.
because
But I
was talking to again, talking to friends, talking to my girlfriend before we do these podcasts, and I'm like, I don't think it's bad, but I think the best term I do use for it is like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, which is not necessarily. It's mostly like it's not bad, because people ask me, is it that bad? And I'm like, it's not bad, but I'm bored. And if you ask me, I'd rather watch something that's just the worst, but it gets a reaction out of me. It
That's fair.
sticks with me.
That's
It
fair.
gets me involved. Then a show that I'm just kind of watching, and at some point I'm like, you know what? I'll just put this as a background noise. You know what? I don't really need to listen at this part. You know what? Maybe I'll skip this because I can't really get into it. And by God, I've tried.
No,
I
that's
so
fair.
tried.
We all have episodes or shows like that, right? It's just not for us. I will say, I think another reason why this one may not have gotten talked about much was this came out in 2022, about the fall to winter season for anime. And it's worth pointing out, like, even if you come out with an amazing show, you are being put up with, you are being put up against that season, the 6th season of My Hero Academia. The Bleach is back during that time. Spy X Family is having its part 2. You have Chainsaw Man as a brand new one coming out. Mob
Something.
Psycho 100 season 3. Like,
it's
some
funny
big
you
heavy
mentioned.
hitters.
Yeah, so I just want to say it's so funny you mentioned Spy X Family, because as I was watching this, I promised my girlfriend we'll continue Spy X Family together, and it's like, it was so weird that both shows have like the same episode length. Both of them are around the 23-minute mark, give or take. And like, I'm watching one, it's like, end already, I get it, move along. But then Spy X Family, I'm like, wait, that's it? That was 22 minutes? Huh.
See, if you want a really good juxtaposition, I've not been able to get into Spy X Family, man.
Ah,
It's not been for me. It's just not been a show for
well,
me. Like, I've watched
and
it. Don't get me wrong. It's good. I don't hate my time with it, but it's just kind of one of those things of I'll watch a bit, drop it, and then come back to it. I've not finished the first season yet.
uh, so that's interesting though, because okay, now you got me in this episode. Like you got me for not being that about Arknights, but again, but I guess it's gonna also require taste. But for the record,
No,
I love
yeah.
the type of show Arknights is. I like this type of shows, but again, it just felt we are putting stuff in there. You know what? I guess the best way to really talk about this. You wanna go into spoilers?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Okay, so
So if
for
you've
the
not
record,
watched the show,
we are not doing this episode by episode. We're just gonna talk about this as a continuous thing because I feel like the show works better that way. But also, if you haven't seen the show and you just wanted to hear us ramble about it, then this is your chance to close the video, go watch it, and come back later for the spoiler thoughts. If you've seen the show, this is safe for you. So, with that said, spoiler talk in 3, 2, 1.
now I know by saying Spy X Family is not for me, I'm gonna have a lot of people saying that I need to return the Weeb card. I've been revoked. I'm no longer a part of the anime community. I get it, but
I mean, even I like it.
I'm gonna piss even
okay.
more people off by saying it's the same with Chainsaw Man from the season as well. I watched all of that. I didn't hate it. I completely understand why people love that show. Still
Okay,
did not get into
Wolf,
it.
buddy, I think we are going a bit. We said spoiler section, not an
But
entirely.
anyways, I had to say it, all right, because I know people are gonna get angry in the comments, and it's like, hold up.
But to kind of course, but no, most commenters are already looking for my address to kill me. I'm pretty sure. So anyway,
If they like Arknights, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and again, I said it before, I said again, if you like the show, by all means continue to enjoy it. Just because it's not for me doesn't mean everyone has to agree with it. And again, I will say, and I mentioned this before, just because I was bored with it and everything, I see the good in this show, okay? And that's why I want to jump into spoilers, because I feel like I want to talk about the good without much filters. So I will say this. Anya, the main character, I think she's cool. I like this kind of character. I like, because if anything, I don't really want to use that term. I'm sure people are gonna hang me, but I guess she was an interesting take on, the quote unquote, right? Shonen protagonist. The one that will keep on fighting and try to see the upbeat, the upbeat and optimistic worldview. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that this is shonen, but whatever. I'm just using it as a term. I think she was an interesting take on it because usually when you see those people, they are like the little guy that tries to make it big, or someone who already made it big and just wants to do good for the world. And so what I found interesting here is that Anya is like, at least from the character design, she appears to be kind of young. Like she looks like a teenager.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's fairly young.
Yeah,
like young adult in that area.
Yeah, so again, teenager, I'd say like 16, 17, somewhere
she's
around
18,
there.
I believe, is her age.
18.
I think.
Point is, teenager.
Yeah,
She's not an adult yet.
Young adult.
But what I want to point here is that, usually you'll see this like teenager or young adult. You'll see them being the one that has to follow orders and not necessarily, and they don't necessarily agree, and sometimes they rebel, and that that can either work for their advantage or not. But here we start, and Anya is like, not the leader in a sense. She's giving orders to people. She's, there are obviously people, with a higher rank than her, I'm pretty sure, but...
No, she's the leader of Rhodes Island anyways.
Yeah, but she is the leader. And, what I like about this is that it was nice to see a leader that has the upbeat, I'm gonna fix the world mentality. and to see that mentality challenged. And people below her tell her, no, you can't do that. You are living in a fantasy if you think you can solve all of the world's problems. Let's just focus on what we're here for. Let's focus on our mission. Carry about the like whatever we manage to say from the side, good. But this is not our priority. But she keeps trying, and she keeps and she and her crew, despite not agreeing with it, they are obeying her, and they are trying to make her happy, and trying to serve her, what she to do what she wants them to do. I found this interesting. Okay, I found this actually, for all the stuff I said that the show takes from other stuff, and we'll get there. I feel like this was the one thing I want to give credit for, that Anya was great, and I hope more things would do this. That, the leader doesn't always have to be like the one that fought wars and saw pain and knows that sometimes there's no choice. You know what? I'm also happy that sometimes the upbeat guy gets to be the leader, and it can cause it can cause as much as interesting plot points as anything else. Just put it in a show that actually makes me give a damn. But what can you do?
Another thing I find personally interesting about it is that I'm curious how they're going to do things going forward, because the Doctor, if you've not figured it out from watching the show, I don't feel it's too hard though. It is, that player character essentially from the game, right?
Yeah,
like that silent
that's
player character.
I didn't really figure out it's supposed to be a player character, because I'm watching an adaptation. Why are you going to bring up that there's a player in the whole thing?
Well,
but
he's apparently like very plot and story relevant, but you are playing as him in the game essentially. And I find it interesting because in a show like this, the character with amnesia who doesn't remember anything at all would normally end up being like the super powered, protagonist. But no, he isn't. It's more focused on all those around him, and I'm very curious to see how they move forward with that. I'm very, again, like that's one of the things that interests me about the show.
They built up. For one, I will say that I also kind of like that if this is actually supposed to be the player character, then I also want to give credit for not making it obvious, the gender of what. Yeah, that, because it does feel like this is your self-insert, and it's not necessarily a face. You can be under that hood. You can you can be in the events. You can totally picture yourself there. That I liked. And I also felt like, again, there was something there with the relationship between Amiya and the player character, the Doctor, as they call him, and I don't know, the Doctor.
Yeah, it's just Doctor. Doctor, or however Amiya says it, that people love to death. Hello, did HC die? I think HC died. No, I think the entire voice connection has died, actually, audience. Yeah. Discord has deaded. That's what has happened. You can still hear me, not HC anymore, so until HC gets back, we'll have to see what's going on there. I will say that, for me personally, I was very interested in the story of it all and how the first episode builds that up. I find it very interesting and very enjoyable, because the way they put it forward, it's very, in my opinion, it's very front loaded, very heavy, but I found it interesting in so much that hello HC, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Discord has died, but it seems I can still hear you somehow.
Okay, so
I was regaling the audience poorly, I might add, but I was telling them about how I loved how they built up the world in that first episode, personally.
So it's funny that I guess Discord didn't want us talking over each other, because I was talking about how much I hate the world in this. I
enjoy it. I like it personally.
Not hate, for the record. Again, it's not like I am so sick of this entire, there are a group of people who are different, and now the group who's different needs to fight the government in order to gain some sort of right, and like there's a section who like wants to do it peacefully. There's a section one. I am so sick of this. We've seen this so many goddamn times in so many shows, and nothing here felt unique, if I'm honest with you.
Well, I was more referring to the not so much like the infected, but I was referring to the, the fact that you have like the moving cities, you have basically the thing that infects people is, their entire energy and technology source, and it's how they can do everything they can do, right? From the arts and stuff like that, like the magic
Yeah,
essentially.
that's one thing that I wasn't necessarily sure of. Like, does this infection come from like within them, or can they infect others? Because they
So
imply that they can,
yeah, the
but
entire idea of it is, or originium, I believe that's how you pronounce it, is like this crystal that they have, this mineral they have access to, that basically they use it for everything, and it'll but they use it for everything, but unfortunately, like, the more interaction you have with it, the more chance you have of becoming infected. And basically, as the infection grows throughout your body over time, there's no cure for this. Think cancer, essentially, except this particular version of cancer makes you, turn into a hardened crystal that then explodes and can infect other people with oropathy, the disease of this world.
so you see, you told me all this, and it's like they mentioned this in the show, yes, but it's also what like again, it's like you have an infection, you have like an infection subplot. Okay, fine, but then you turn this into like a political affair with something that, like you said, why I know it's not the same, right? But you mentioned you kind of call that fictional cancer in a sense. Why make diseases political?
Well, I don't think, I mean, I can't say for that one. Like, again, for
I
me
get it. I get it. It's
personally,
like a pick of the world. I think it's like this is what they want to do. And again, maybe I am just a klutz who doesn't get it. There's a completely viable chance that it's just me being a grumpy. I've seen this so many times. This doesn't work. But it just felt like these are two things that don't necessarily go with each other. And if they can't go with each other, this is not the way.
I don't know. Personally, I disagree. I enjoyed it. I found myself, getting into it and the idea of it. I
And by
found it
all means.
interesting, personally. And again, like I said, like, I liked the take of, I don't know. I guess I'm just not bored of it. Maybe I've not seen it enough yet. Maybe eventually I will grow bored of it. But so far, I haven't. I've enjoyed the, hey, group is being oppressed and they fight back. And I've enjoyed this, and I enjoy how this show does it, or how this franchise does it, of, this group that's been oppressed might be pushing too hard and going too far, but also, everything that's been done to them, are they necessarily wrong, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed those stories so far, and I've continued to enjoy them personally. And I enjoy that, you have Amia over here on the side being told, hey, your goal of trying to do all of this peacefully and bring these different people to the table, even though one side has been clearly wronged continuously and continues to get wronged, and
And
is
that's
now
another thing.
fighting back.
And it's
You're
another
fighting a
thing
losing
that,
battle, but hey, we'll still support you anyways, because we want to believe that maybe you can find a way.
and again, we bring this. I brought this up again, but like we basically have four sides to this whole conflict. There's the government, because of course.
Mhm.
There's the regular people, which we barely see. We see some, but not all. And then we have like the group, there's the
Reunion.
group of the infected, which is split to two, right? There's Amia's side, who like tries to find peaceful ways and everything, and then there's also the bad guys,
Mhm.
who feel like, well, we if we want to advance somewhere with this entire conflict, we need to use force.
Mhm.
And I feel that, at least for season one, the government shouldn't have been a part of this. The government, for basically, brought nothing but, we need the government there for the sake of some political not necessarily commentary, but to have that vibe there. And the conflict should have been the two groups trying to figure out the solution. Or better yet, show me why there are two groups.
I think
Show me.
the idea of, I don't know if that would work per se, like these two groups, like Reunion and Rhodes Island coming together. The entire idea that I think is been put forth, right, and the theme of it is that these two groups can never come together and work things out. Like,
but that's the thing.
much
show me the
paths.
backstory to why. Show me the backstory to why.
Well,
I think me care.
Well, I think the backstory isn't necessarily the thing you need. I think what they needed was that, again, right, and I think they're going to, based off of how this season ended, I think you're going to get it more in season 2. But I think the idea is there's not really a backstory to these two groups, more so that these two groups are just like Rhodes Island and Reunion, the infected that are basically rising up in arms and being violent and everything, blah blah. They're two ideologically opposed groups, right? Rhodes Island being, Amia's group trying to find a peaceable solution and something that doesn't result in a lot of people dying to violence that they didn't need to. And then the Reunion movement, who they just want to get back at it all, who they're just tired and they found a glimmer of hope in something and they're going with it, even if it's, not helpful to them at all. Because again, the overall, right, even if, these two groups came together, there's still no cure for the infection, right? People will still die. There might eventually be, but who knows how long that would take, right? So there is no, good outcome as of right now. You're right. So that's the thing that I think is interesting, because there's no cure, there's no help for these people. They're going to die no matter what. I find it interesting so much as, which side do you take up at that point? Who do you go with? I find it, again, I just find it an interesting moral dilemma, because there is no cure, right? I think that's an interesting, wrench in the gears here.
Okay, so now here's my counterpoint, and for the record, I guess this is more what I would want the show to be, rather than like me talking about what I want the show to be rather than talking about what it is. But if I want to somehow, but as is, okay, as is, when you start a show with such a conflict that you, like you said, you can see both ways, and you can kind of say, maybe this side has a point, this side has a point. Which one do you choose? I don't mind that. But I feel, because we don't see why there are two sides, because we don't see what separated those two groups, because we don't know the reason for why there's this, to why there's this debate between them the bad blood between them to begin with. It just feels like one group is doing good because they are good people, I guess, and the other ones are doing this because they are jerks, I guess. And so when you don't really have much of the heart of it, basically, then it just comes down to, we have good guys and bad guys. And why should I side with the good guys, other than the fact that they're the good guys and good always wins? And why should I be invested in the bad guys if they are just a bunch of jokes? So
here's where I completely surprise you. I agree with you. I think, as I said, right, I think this show is very front heavy, very loaded in its first couple episodes, and so much they're trying to get across. And I feel like, and this is exactly the same place where the game starts. And for a game, there's things you have to your advantage that you can build up with, right? And like lore documents, stuff like that. If those people who are really interested can go read it and things like that, you have that advantage.
And even in a game, I would usually say that's like lore stuff, unless it's like really the little details. Lore and information that I need in order to follow the story shouldn't be abstracted. And I have this criticism from other type of games, right? It's not I'm not saying this is something for Arknights specifically. Again, never played.
Which is fair, but like what my point is though is that in a game you can kind of start in the middle of it, and that's okay because you have stuff in games where you can alleviate that feeling that you have with this show. Shows don't have access to that type of like storytelling, those type of storytelling techniques, in my opinion, right? Like that games do. Like there's a way that games can start you in the middle of something and say, hey. But you still get the full idea. You still, by the end of it, you know which side is which and why they're doing what they're doing right in the game, because there's ways you can alleviate starting in the middle of it. A show can't necessarily do that unless it just says, hey, see you in the next season where we go into this more, or hey, here's a prequel show, right? You know, they have to take the time to come out with that stuff.
And that's the thing, and that's another thing I wanna point out here when it comes to this kind of stuff is that like you said, okay, I'm glad that you agree with me first of all, and you don't want to have my head. That's good.
Oh no, I do, but for many different reasons other than this.
Okay. Sonic Prime is better. I'm kidding. Okay. Anyway, before the jokes lose their grasp. Okay, so I just want to say, the reason they don't show us why those two groups are at odds pisses me off more, because when it comes to directing, when it comes to the animation, when it comes to stuff, there are some wonderful show don't tell scenes in this show, and they are well directed, they are well animated for the most part. The animation is really 50-50 for me, but we'll talk about this later, I guess. It's just that there are moments where it's like the glimmers of a great show are coming out. It's there. But when I look down at the basics, I can't give a shit, because I am not given a reason to necessarily give a shit. And it's one of those, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
No, I get that, right? Because again, like you say, there are some amazing shots and some amazing storytelling and stuff going on within the show. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the director behind the show is like a huge fan of the games and the story. And so from what I understand, like there was a lot of, love put into it, right? And because they care, from what I understand. I could be wrong though. It may not be the director, but I think the director is someone who's a big fan or something like that, I believe.
And that's another thing. It's good that, the director or the writers or whoever are fans of the source material, and I will never take that away. But I'm saying this also as someone who saw this happen with a game I love, right? We might talk about this at some point in the future, but the Ratchet and Clank movie. You, from interviews and stuff, you can tell the director of that movie, Kevin Monroe, you can tell that he loves the games, that he gets their idea, that he gets what made the games popular. But when it comes down to putting this in a story, for someone that doesn't have the context, for someone who didn't play the games and might just think, hey, this would be a fun movie to check out, maybe I can get through to the games through it, this is where he fails, because he just kind of assumes the audience knows what he knows, and that's not the way to do it.
I agree.
So if there's a reason in the game, I'm sure there is. Someone direct me to it. I would love to hear it.
Maybe. I've not played enough to say. And I'm sure the fans of the game are going to be very mad.
People who played it, if they don't want to kill me already, please know that I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to hear it out.
I will say, right, for me, right, I'm curious to hear you as well. Were there any like scenes that, specifically that stood out to you as like, this was really good? Like anything you would really want to talk about?
I don't necessarily have like moments on top of my head, but one thing that I kind of think of is in the first episode where Amiya saves the little kid, the little girl,
Yes,
and
yes.
her mother, and her mother takes her away. And you see like the group looking at them, and the girl actually has this moment where she looks around and waves goodbye. There you go. You have a moment there. You give me a reason to care that what, not everyone might appreciate the infected, but if this group does something well for people, the people will remember it. There would be someone standing by them. And in a show like this, where we are focusing on the group of people that tries to help others, it's important to show that there's at least someone who appreciates it.
Personally, I thought they did really well at showing also the power that some of these characters have,
Yeah.
right? And the ability, like seeing, Tallulah, what I assume, like, so this is one of the changes that I think they might have made. In the game, it's apparently like those things raining down from the sky isn't Tallulah. That's like the catastrophe, one of the things that are
Okay.
within the world. But in the show, I think it seems like they're making it look like Tallulah did it, right? But again, like, I think it's a good change per se, because it really shows just how strong this character is, right? And just how dangerous she is as the leader of this, rebellion of sorts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, it looks great. It's a
Yeah,
nice scene to watch.
definitely. Again, there are moments of, and again, to jump back to the end, there's this moment where Amiya has to take a life. She has to kill
Yes. Yeah, I
someone.
was going to ask you about that as well.
So you see, this is the point where I'm like, oh shit, here we go. There's something interesting here. There's something, where the peaceful route was just not available.
Mm-hmm.
There's something, I'm like, okay, I'm interested. What are we gonna do with it? Honestly, nothing.
Well, yeah, because
Like,
season ends.
yeah, because, and
Well,
that's the thing. Why the murder part? The Amiya killing that guy. That's episode 7. There's another episode and a half after where she also gets this, like, voice message from the guy's sister, and she's like, "You killed him, you killed him, and everything." And it's like, oh, what are we getting? This is just a setup for the next season. Oh, jolly.
Well, again, it definitely, it's one of those things of, yeah, I come back to it. I dislike how we're doing this still, but at the very least, it's a good lead in, because I hope it means we can get some good, character development for Amiya and how she moves forward and where they take things for her, right? Because again, like, her entire thing was, hey, yeah, we're fighting other infected, but we're not going to kill people or other infected. We're trying to save everyone here, right? Like, that was her whole thing. She's the idealist, but she did have to compromise that on that ideal to save someone she truly cared about, the doctor, right? So it's interesting, and Misha confronts her about this, and Misha was getting ready to kill her, and then Misha is killed by Chen, another character. There's a lot of
Yeah.
these characters.
Yeah, and again, there's all this crap.
That's another one of those things of, I watched this and I felt like there are people in the game who are like, yeah, that person, I know that person. And I'm sitting back like, they're cool looking. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, honestly, I'll tell you what. I was actually thinking about mentioning this, just so that because I'm not sure. It felt at its point like it's the problem I kind of have with Ruby nowadays, but
Where,
somewhat,
like, hey, we're introducing a character. They're not like
yeah.
anyone important, but we're introducing them. Like, I think
But
the
yeah,
girl with like the angel halo over her head, just, hi, I'm here. I'm a character. I'm probably really interesting, but you're not going to get to know me, but I'm here
but
though. And fans of the
But
game are like,
that's the point. But
yo.
that's the point. That it's not necessarily that they introduce new characters, but they are insisting on keeping the characters around, even though I'm not here for them. I'm here for the group that I've been stuck with since the beginning because I got to know them and I got attached to them.
Hey, they got rid of one. They got rid of Ace and other
Yeah,
dude
good.
who was like
Yeah,
there, who had a line
yeah.
or two.
literally Crimea River. But here,
Ace sacrificed himself. How dare you?
I was sure for a second you made a pun where it was like a sacrifice, and I wanted to say you think my puns are bad, you hypocrite. But then it wasn't a pun.
Nope.
So
I'm not
just
that
an idiot.
bad yet.
But basically, here I can kind of at least somewhat understand it because, there is a fan base, we want to cater to them. But for God's sakes, make sure the character has something to do. Because, honestly, there's this guy, I don't remember his part, honestly. I'm sorry. I watched this just now. I zoned out, like I said. But there was this guy with the sunglasses and the beard. What was his role, like in the good guys part? What did he do?
Ace. That was Ace.
Oh, that was Ace.
Yeah,
okay.
I believe that's Ace. I think like he's there to basically be the sacrifice for the group, and that's it.
Yeah, so but that's the thing. Before this, what does he do? The only thing we see him do besides talk is to jump behind one bad guy and strangle and break his neck. That's it. That's all he does. And then I'm supposed to feel sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And
he's a cool dude.
yeah. Okay, then show me what kind of a cool dude he is.
No, you just have. He's wearing sunglasses and he has a beard. HC. That's cool. All right. Did you hear his voice? He's cool. He's got a deep voice. He's cool.
So you know what? I didn't shave yet, so I have a beard too at the time of this recording.
Are you wearing sunglasses and do you have a deep voice though, HC?
Sunglasses? Now yes. Deep voice? Now yes.
You're trying at least. You're halfway cool.
Yeah, but you see, that's the point. So just because you have those things, it doesn't also automatically make cool character.
I agree. Like there's again, I'm of the opinion that I feel like this is going to be a thing of, hey, season 1 started in a weird place, but season 2 brings it back. I feel like it's going to be one of those things, personally. I feel like I say this a lot, and then we come back on, finally, to cover the second season of something that we've covered before, and it's like, it was good. It didn't bring it back, really. Or it did, but in a different way than what I really thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't tell you, right? I can't tell you.
I don't know. I feel like, because I came into this thinking, because it's called Prelude to Dawn, right? It's going to be like a prequel to the games. That's what I had thought it was going to be, or something like that. And if you wanted the full story, they were either going to do that later, or they were going to come in and just go play the game. This is like a prequel story to get you set up for the game or something, right? And that's what I came into it expecting. Then I looked more and kind of played the game a bit, and I was like, oh, it's just the story of the game, but changed a little, just a slight bit, but more or less the story of the game. Okay, neat. I feel like they should have started somewhere sooner, maybe earlier in like the conception of things, right? If you get me, like before the game story. That way we could have gotten something that was smaller in scope, maybe, and that didn't try to focus on as many things as it's focusing on. We would get the world a little bit. Maybe the Doctor wouldn't be a thing just yet, right? We haven't rescued him, or we've not found him, or blah 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 yet, right? And it's just Amia and just a few people from Rhodes Island, and it's just them maybe doing some missions, or we're kind of learning a bit about Rhodes Island and the world, and maybe we're hearing a little bit about Reunion, and it's just them, right? I feel like that would have been the better place to start a show like this at, because I do agree with you. As you said, we start right in the middle of things, and that can be fine, but because you're starting right in the middle of things and you're expecting new people to come into this as well, you're also having to give these new people all this information that they would need to really understand the world and everything like that. And you don't have to do that in a game. In a game, you can slow that down and feed it over time, and it's perfectly fine, especially for how Arknights as a game is set up, right? It works for that. Trying to do that story one-to-one, I think they did well at adapting it, in my opinion. I think it's a great adaptation from having played the story of the game that's in the anime that they covered, more or less. I think they adapted it as best as they could. And all of the props to them, they deserve that, right? Because they did a good adaptation. The problem, though, is that ignoring the fact that it's an adaptation, even though I loved and enjoyed it, and I'm very interested in a second season personally, I do agree and think, yes, it does fall flat in terms of a general anime, in that I feel it's too front loaded. It's trying to do way too much with its first season, and I think it needs to pare back a lot and just really focus in on a few select things. I feel like season 2 is going to be the thing that does that, based off of how they ended it. Personally, I could be horribly wrong, but that's what I feel and what I hope.
I'll say, as the person who's been the somewhat negative Nancy to this whole thing, I'll tell you what, I'm not saying I'm hyped for season 2. I know one's coming, but I'm not saying I'm hyped for it. I'm pretty sure, like, if I'm gonna start watching season 2, then honestly, it's gonna be for podcast obligations, which, for the record, I've done before. So, but I'll tell you what, if I start watching season 2 and go, you know what? That's actually good. That's actually interesting. That's picking up the pace, and I'm actually interested in learning and stuff. I would be very happy to come back here and say, you know what? Thanks for proving me wrong, show. The first season I may still be about, but you know what? If season 2 actually comes out and it's like better and an improvement, you know what? Let's go.
We have our low bar right here at the Berkcast and Outcast. And I mentioned the Berkcast very specifically because our low bar is apparently the Nine Realms. Does it beat the low bar? Does Arknights Prelude to Dawn beat the low bar? Is it able to step over?
You know what's funny? My friend Jaya, she's been on the podcast a few times. She asked me if it's worse than Nine Realms, and I told her what I'm about to say now. In terms of
send all your angry letters to @HC.
Yeah, wait. In terms of technicalities, right? In terms of, animation, storytelling, actually being a show, and in that regard, an adaptation / spin-off of something existing, I'll say yes. But at the same time, Nine Realms is so bad, so terrible, and so eyebrow-raising that I'm at least walking out of it feeling something. Even if it's just pure anger at mankind, I'm still at least feeling something.
I figured that might be what you'd say, which that's fair, right? Like, because again, like, I do agree. I think Arknights is one of those animes that it's not bad, it's good, but it very much feels like it's aggressively there, right? It's not inoffensive, it's not offensive, it's just there, which that's fine. That's all you need really to be a decent show. And if you don't do anything or say anything of worth, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not every show has to do that, right? Not everything has to be there really trying to say or do something or be something or be, noticed.
Mm-hmm.
But it does mean, that if you're forgotten, well, you're forgotten. That's just how it be.
Yeah, and again, I want to point out again, just because that's how I felt about the show doesn't mean I don't see its qualities. I made sure to talk about the qualities that I think are there, and I will never take that away from the show and the people who love it, because there are many reasons that I can see people loving this. And again, we'll never take this away from them. That being said, I'm saying what I feel, right?
No, that's fair. That's completely fair.
Mm-hmm.
Again, right, like it comes down to, I said earlier, right, Chainsaw Man, it's not something that's for me, but it's something that's still going to stick with me having watched it, and I understand why so many people do love and enjoy it, because it does something. Whether that thing is being horribly offensive or not doesn't matter. It does something, right? compared to this, where even though I loved and enjoyed this more, it's not doing a lot yet. Maybe, but not there yet. And so it's just good. It's, that's all you can say for it. It's a good show. Unless you're a big fan or you're someone who got really into it, you're not really going to be able to say much more than that, right? Chainsaw Man, even if you're not really into it, you can say something.
Mm-hmm. I'll say that again. I can give the show credit in some areas, but at the end of the day, I feel like the fact that what really brings us down for me is being bold. And again, I think this is kind of a meeting that it's a personal taste, right?
No,
That
that's fair.
some people would prefer being mad and angry than being bold. And I'm one of those people because I feel like if I'm bold, then I'm left with nothing at the end of the day. I'm living this and I'm probably not going to remember this a day after, even a few hours after I've seen it, But that's me. That's my personal take on it. And I know that not everyone is going to agree with this. And again, to the people who think the positives of the show outlast the negatives, like Wolf, then it's completely valid. And by all means, enjoy the show, embrace it, and I hope whatever comes next is to your liking. That being said, though, if I'm talking from my own personal side of things, season 2 needs to do some work in order to win me over, which I hope it does.
I agree with that.
I'm not closing the door. I'm not. You know what? I'm still saying I would love to try and watch season 2 whenever it's out, and then come back here and be. You know what? They proved me wrong.
I'm not closing the door, he says, but it's mostly closed. There's a small crack there. I can look out with my eye and see maybe you'll interest me again.
I know, like legit. The door is wide open. If they can make it better, doors wide open. I am ready. Show me what you got.
That's fair. Again, I completely get it. Right? It's like, it's very much for me. I don't mind if a show is a little slow and a little boring, so long as it's doing something that interests me, right? And Arknights gave me some things that interested me, right? Like the world building, I'm interested in. The characters there, I'm interested in, right? That stuff appeals to me, and I find it enjoyable, and I'm interested to see where it can go and what it does with that. Hopefully it's good, and I feel like it's going to be. But who knows? It could be worse. I could come back and say, I hated season 2. And HC comes back and says, I loved season 2.
Who knows? Like, again, everything is possible. We will never know until season 2 comes out and until we get to it, whenever that will be. But whenever it will be, I guess we'll see you then to talk about it. But any closing marks before we close the topic?
I won't do I had a joke, but no, I'll pass. I won't do it.
I guess not. Okay.
I'll say, go watch Arknights. It's okay. It was fun.
It's possible. If you're bold, don't say we didn't warn you. Also, if you haven't seen it, then why the hell are you in the spoiler section? Leave. This was all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it and that you really, I'm a nice guy, I want to believe. Don't kill me. Enjoy the show. What are your favorite parts of Arknight? If you, like, are you on Wolf's side, my side? Did you play the game? Did you not play the game? What are your thoughts? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast, with a capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. And until next time, I was HC.
And I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.